So Near and Zebec, the quiet deal that's already won. All right. So the first part of this video will be for everyone. The second part will be Patreon only. Definitely come over to the Patreon where you can get the full video. Come over to the Patreon where we do stock tips. I keep all my stock tips over in the Patreon, and also come over to the Patreon for open mic nights, symbolism Sundays, and private chat rooms where we discuss all our stock picks, all of our crypto picks, and at the end of this video, we will get into some of those picks that we're looking at for the Patreon only, right? So shout out to you guys in the Patreon, but let's get into it here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So looking at Near's price right now, it's looking quite juicy. We've been in this guy since 117. And if you look at the day chart, it's just up and it keeps going up, and it looks like it's wanting to come over here and be bullish on the day chart, go like with the 50 crossing the 200 EMA. That's called the golden cross. It's looking like it's gathering up to do that here. But yes, we've ridden this train all the way from like 117 all the way up to right where it is right now, 186 or 168. I don't know what that is. It's at least over 33%. Got to love that. Okay. And now we're going to head into, let me see what we got in the chat in the Patreon. What's up, Kevin Garrett? Shout out to you. And then let's get over here back. So where we're going to go first is George Zhang of Near. He is the chief product officer of Near. He's being interviewed by Generation Infinity, Ryan Solomon. Shout out to that guy. He's a good follow on X. But we're going to pick up here. We're not going to watch this whole 16-minute interview. We're just going to start at like the 13-minute mark. And definitely I'll post this link in the Patreon so you guys can take a listen yourselves. Let me put on my headset so I can hear. And let's pick up here.
So to your question, do we use LLMs as an individual, or do we use it in some broader ways as society? I think it depends on the LLM models. I think it depends on the pre-training data. I think it depends on the post-training data. And I think it depends on the use case you have. And I think what you'll see is that depending on the pre-training and post-training data used, LLMs may actually have very, very different answers and capabilities.
It's really interesting. Yeah, my head kept going towards like a wrinkle. I think it's A Wrinkle in Time, where like at the end of the book, there ends up just being this collective intelligence brain, which is super interesting. But okay, so walk us out here. I know that you guys have been OGs as far as kind of the AI perspective and leveraging blockchain. But where do you see? And I don't want to go 5 years. I know the boilerplate question is like, where are you going to be at 5 years from now? What are you excited about for 2026 from Near's standpoint as an industry, or just where the opportunity lies, and what kind of excites you the most?
I am really excited about actually agents being able to take on more actions, right? So one of the things that we've been building is a whole entire stack of agents able to take real economic actions. So Ironclaw for secure as a secure agent harness, confidential inference for private AI, and then Intense being able to actually execute real economic transactions. One of the ways we've actually seen this emerge is that Near has also built an agent marketplace where agents can actually use other agents for different skills, data, et cetera, as well. And we're starting to see traction there grow more and more as well. So I think 2026 will hopefully be the year with which agents are able to actualize real economic transactions.
So I'm going to ask you my kind of last question here, because you mentioned kind of this agent marketplace. I think that's super interesting because before I mentioned kind of the eliminating redundancy aspect. So what is that? Maybe can you just go a little bit deeper into that? So essentially, there's multiple agents in this marketplace. Certain agents are trained to do certain things. Are the agents themselves going and seeking out information on us? Or is it both?
The agents themselves are posting jobs and getting help from other agents. People can also post jobs as well. The interesting thing is that if you think about a specific agent, you can actually equip an agent with different skills and tools. The skills and tools could actually be different on an agent-to-agent basis. We saw an agent actually post in the Near agent marketplace a job to find Medicaid fraud with a big bounty attached. And then my sense is they found real fraud
Wow.
in the Medicaid data. So that is like a really, really wild example of like how agents may actually be able to do things that humans find it difficult to do. I don't know about you, but I don't spend my weekends parsing through gigabytes and terabytes of like medical data to try to find fraud, but an agent could easily do that.
Yeah, I know, for most of us, even reading through a whatever medical plan you pick on an annual basis is a nightmare. So
Boring.
hopefully we have a secure environment in the future that we can kind of parse through that data. Well, this was a super interesting interview.
So right there, that was a lot. It was really a lot, but we're going to break it down. I promise you. The whole agent marketplace, right? I think people are really sleeping on these agent marketplaces and how fast these agent marketplaces are going to be here now and the thing, right? There are some estimates where they even think in a few years, agent markets, there'll be way more agents than there are humans out there just purchasing and buying and doing things. And in the example he gave there, Medicare fraud, right? That might be really hard for a human to do because, like you don't want to, how do you know if someone's frauding or not? Or like, some people might not care, but some people, like, oh, I don't want to take benefits away from someone who might actually need them or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that's a hard task for a human to do, but the AI doesn't care about any of that. It can just go through, parse that, and find the fraud, right? So very interesting use case here. And just a little background on like kind of who we're dealing with Near. People remember Near's founder, Ilya Polosukin. Polosuchin. So Polosuchin. Co-author, Attention is All You Need. Very few people know about the second co-founder, Alex Skidanov, was a early engineer at MIM SQL, now Single Store, a multi-billion-dollar database infrastructure company, and it contributed to OpenAI. So right there, you have a contributor to OpenAI, right? And Ilya Polosukin, right? He was an engineer at Google when he did this. Attention is all you need. So you got Google and OpenAI connection right there. And I've showed you guys in the past Near being connected to NVIDIA, right? And I think NVIDIA earnings come out, if not today, pretty soon here. You got Unusual Whales here saying something about NVIDIA earnings down here. So NVIDIA earnings are coming soon. Pause. So that's probably going to be very good for Near and how Near's price is going to move. And I'll just bring that up for you guys right here, right quick. We'll do it live where you can see here Near's founder and the NVIDIA founder sharing a little moment here in March 25th, 2024. And people made a real big deal about this hand touch, right? I don't know if that means something or if it doesn't, but again, so keep that in mind. So not only is this guy big, wrote this paper at Google, where he was a Google engineer, lead engineer, of course, right? Which turned out to be the basis of AI. Glad handing and sharing touch here with the CEO of NVIDIA, right? Jensen Huang, really big here, but also the co-founder here contributed to OpenAI and has a multi-billion-dollar database infrastructure company. So Near's team is one person who co-invented the architecture behind modern AI. Check. And one person who built distributed database infrastructure used by enterprises worldwide. Check. Very huge. So both have been heads down on the same chain since 2018. then look at the technical resumes of the projects in the AI/crypto sector that are hype now. Market's bad at this one. So not sure what they mean by market's bad at this one, but that's quite the resume for both of them. You know what I mean? And if anyone, like all the people that they're rubbing shoulders with, we've kind of already won, right? If they're rubbing shoulders with Google and OpenAI right now, we kind of already won. And they're the leaders and the best in the agentic AI space. They're already making money from it. And I already told you too as well that their CEO, the one who was fundamental in founding kind of AI with the attention is all you need, he also helped co-author X402. Okay, so we kind of already won there, right? But let's continue here. So this is a crazy stat. 42% of all activity on near.com in the last 30 days was confidential. 6 weeks ago, that number was 0. The curve is bending. The curve is going like exponential. And you got John Cena with the "you can't see me," right? And for real, like the time is now. And I even made that comment, which I think is a pretty funny joke if you guys know John Cena's theme music. But indeed, like this is huge. Again, it's showing you if it's 42% now and that only 6 weeks, imagine where we are six months from now, right? And all of this basically is starting here with USDC, private USDC being able to use with near confidential intents. And as the CFO mentioned there, this marketplace is already up and running. Okay. And here we have it. Near AI brings private USDC payments to the agentic economy. If agents are going to participate in real economic activity, they need settlement on a verifiable public network, but with transactions that remain private by default. Okay. And they've got kind of different ways of doing this. Canton can do this, right? But as far as agentic AI, Near is probably very much leading in that space. But of course, maybe Canton ends up trying to do something with that as well and have it, in their house. But Near is very much leading that right now. And being that they're hooked in with NVIDIA, right? It could probably even go down to the hardware level, right? With the whole near intents and things being confidential down to the hardware level. Okay. They say here with the introduction of confidential intents, which is powered by near private shard and support for USDC, we now have the foundation for private programmable stablecoin transactions designed for agents. Again, for something like how they were just talking about finding fraud in Medicare, right? Medical records. Like there's so many different use cases where you're going to need the type of encryption, the type of protection that Near provides here. Okay. And they say how it works: private execution, stable settlement. Now an agent can initiate a transaction on the Near agent market using any of Near intent supported assets to allow the system to route and execute the transaction privately. So the recipient receives their preferred digital assets such as USDC, subject to routing and liquidity conditions. So the agents can already do this, right? And they're already doing it. Like 42% of the activity is confidential activity, Near is telling you right now. So individual users and businesses can post jobs and pay agents in USDC. Agents can complete tasks and receive payment through the platform natively. Skills and capabilities monetized directly within the marketplace. The full payment flow, work posted, work completed, work payment settled, is settled on a decentralized infrastructure without public exposure. Now, this is where we get into Zebec, right? And some other projects, right? Zebec probably being a facilitator, or Zebec having some settlement on the back end could be very interesting. If Zebec is one of the big parts of the interledger protocol, like we think there, right? Shout out to Blue Collar Crypto. Shout out to Maximus Crypto. Shout out to my guys there. Let's continue. This foundation of programmable automated commerce, okay? Truly autonomous agents will not operate in isolation, but instead will pay for APIs for data access, compensate other agents for specialized tasks, execute financial workflows on behalf of businesses. That's huge. Execute financial workflows on behalf of businesses. Again, this doesn't sound sexy, but if you think about the magnitude and the scope of how this can work, it could be very easy in a couple years' time for agents to dwarf human human transactions, right? Because all these things are going to do is work and coordinate across services and vendors. All these scenarios require seamless payment infrastructure, interledger, overledger, Canton, right? Things like that. Private stablecoin infrastructure possible between confidential intents and USDC. And then here we could also say, since all of this stuff is happening between USDC, this is also where Circle can come in with Circle's ARC, the layer one, the blockchain that they're building, right? Which Zebec is also helping along with, which we can, show you that as well. Zebec is helping Circle with ARC. We're doing it live here. So in helping Circle with ARC, you got to believe that they're going to be a part of that infrastructure, and then they can use that to do confidential payroll if they want, confidential treasury, you name it. Zebec can be a part of that. So you see here, November 5th, 2025, Zebec officially joins Circle's ARC testnet, the institutional grade network being explored by firms like Visa, State Street, Invesco, and MasterCard. Zebec was an early investment of Circle's and is a member of Circle Alliance and continues to lead developing payroll and payment rails within the USDC ecosystem, paving a way for broader institutional adoption. Gotta love that, of course, right? So let me go ahead and just save that right quick. All right, so going back to where we were here. From payments to autonomous businesses, payments are just the first step. Just the first step. Once agents can transact privately in stablecoins, they can begin to automate back office operations, manage treasury. Again, that's exactly where Zebec would come into play there. Simon Babakani told us about this at XRP Las Vegas. More on that in future shows. Okay. Coordinate with vendors, execute reoccurring financial workflows. Okay. So again, this is huge, huge, huge. So especially when you think about the managed treasury area, if these agents are going back and forth, shout out to Shook Focus Digital. We've talked about this before. Shout out to you, Shook. Where with carbon credits, right? If that's part of the treasury and you want to make sure that your company is carbon neutral, you will have these agents making sure by the minute in real time that you're carbon neutral. So they might be going out and buying carbon credits. Now, if you're a company like Tesla, where you have a surplus in carbon credits, you will probably be selling those carbon credits. So it'll be just with the carbon economy alone, that's huge. But then throw into it payroll. So more on that later. We'll get into that in just a second here. But let's continue. This is how we move from isolated tools to autonomous agent assisted businesses in a completely new model of work. And this is what we need to understand. This is going to be a completely new model of work. let's like hold this right here. And now let's go over to Simon Babakani when he was speaking to the CEO of Dash. Let's hear Simon and what he has to say here.
Our smart contracts can reinvest that in Dash, in Bitcoin, in Zano, in a tokenized S&P 500, for example, if you want to have equities exposure. And there's never been anything like this that's ever been launched before. And I think we can all agree that this is the way that finance is moving. Finance is moving on chain. Finance is moving real time, and being able to reinvest your profits without even having to think about it, right? And having a smart contract execute this, and potentially eventually an AI agent, right, that manages your payroll and manages your investments. And you can essentially live your life without even having to think about making purchases in ETFs or into crypto.
So you got that? He said eventually, maybe, possibly, an AI agent that's going to manage your investments, right? And shout out to Simon Babakani on the Patreon. We have an exclusive interview with Simon Babakani. I've showed you guys in previous shows the kind of proof of interview where Simon gave me an exclusive interview. Shout out to Simon for doing that. He mentioned some things he hasn't mentioned in the Paul Barron interview, that he hasn't mentioned in the Zach Rector interview. And, mad shout out to him. Mad shout out to Simon for giving the channel here an exclusive interview. Definitely come over to the Patreon if you want to see it. It's worth the cost just for that interview, right? But he says eventually maybe AI agents. But again, Simon likes to bury the lead, and he likes to hold his cards close to the vest, right? No, to me, that seems like that's the plan. That is the plan. It's always probably been the plan, right? That AI agents are going to manage our investments. They're going to manage the payroll for the company. They're going to manage the treasury for that company. Now, going back to what we were just reading here, now that makes a lot of sense. This from payments to autonomous businesses, then every business is going to have their group of AI agents that are managing their back offices, that are managing their treasuries, that are coordinating with vendors and setting up appointments, that are executing financial workflows like the one we just mentioned there with carbon credits, or maybe another financial workflow. We just heard their fraud with Medicare, right? So their fraud prevention, right? They're study looking through the records to see if they can find fraud and reduce, the number of people that they're paying out on Medicare and Medicaid and insurance claims and all of this, right? So they're going to have daily AI checking that, so they can reduce their overhead. Right. So this is huge to think about. And this fits right in Zebec's alley, because now that their agents will do the payroll, and then the agents of the super app will do investing for retail. Right. Let me just play that one more time.
It's ever been launched before. And I think we can all agree that this is the way that finance is moving. Finance is moving on chain. Finance is moving real time, and being able to reinvest your profits without even having to think about it, right? And having a smart contract execute this, and potentially eventually an AI agent, right, that manages your payroll and manages your investments. And you can essentially live your life without even having to think about making purchases in ETFs or into.
Okay, so we got that. And I see a lot of people in the Patreon that are over there. We'll get to your Patreon questions at the end here. And this is one of the benefits you would get as a Patreon member. Pre-records like this will go to you live. Okay, so let's continue here. And you can ask questions afterwards. Back here. Okay, so agents will not operate alone. They will interact with other agents inside of environments like near agent market and coordinate work, complete tasks, and exchange value. In this model, humans will provide context, judgment, and direction. So, I could tell you as a coder right now, people are coding, and they're coding using, some of these platforms, right? They're providing judgment and direction with coding with these platforms. So AI is already in that, right? With coders, right? So at some point, maybe they do get it to a point where humans are kind of not, I don't want to say out of the loop completely, but where there are less and less humans in the loop, right? But knowing that this is what's coming, right? How can you afford not to invest? If that makes sense. How can you afford not to invest? What's the alternative? Just be on UBI, right? Like you can't afford to be left behind right now. You can't afford to be priced out of life right now. But I digress. Let's continue. Agents execute tasks and coordinate with other agents. So agent to agent contact, human to agent contact. Payments happen natively between agents using stablecoins like USDC. So again, we know and we saw there in the thing that I read about ARC or that Circle funded Zebec. So they're going to be very it's going to behoove them. Shout out to my guy, Crypto Future. He loves it when I say that word. It's going to behoove them, right? It's going to behoove Circle to make sure that Zebec is empowered and people use Zebec for payroll because that's their investment, right? This creates a system where individuals can still earn even as automation increases. Right? But again, this is going to be less and less over time. Individuals will still earn, and individuals might have their own AI agents, like the ones that are going to be doing their payroll and their investing that they deploy, right? However, this will create a lack of jobs, or it will reduce humans in jobs. I should say it will reduce humans in jobs. So again, you can't afford to be left out of this of investing. So USDC is live in the near agent market. Individual users and businesses can post jobs, configure agents to complete tasks, and facilitate payments through near intents. So again, they're already doing it. They just gave you an example from the consensus, where they found Medicare or Medicaid fraud. So this is just going to increase as people figure out, hey, well, these agents are going to be more efficient at finding fraud because their hearts are not going to be in it. They're just going to be, they're just going to be focused on the task. And boy, oh boy, these companies are going to improve their bottom line, and some people are going to be hurting out there, man. Some people are going to be hurting out there. So just want to remind you too that Zebec is available on Near, right? And I'm willing to bet you that Near and Zebec are going to continue their partnership and deepen their partnership so that this is going to be done confidentially. That's a if that's not a reason for Near intents, right? For them to do confidential agentic AI payroll, I don't know what is, right? So we can definitely expect them to probably deepen their relationship and use Near for confidential payroll. Again, we just showed you here how Circle is partnered with Near to do the Near confidential intents. So it would make sense for Circle to have Zebec use this because Circle owns a piece of Zebec, right? So there we have it. What do you guys think? Have we already won? I think we've won already. I think we really have won already. So let me know what you guys think about this. Did you like? What do you think about AI? How quickly do you think agentic AI will replace human beings? Now, you guys stick around in the Patreon. We're going to continue this show. And if you want to see the full show here, definitely come over to the Patreon, less than a cup of coffee over there. to get the Patreon. But now I'm going to answer the Patreon's questions, and we're going to get into some of the agentic AI things that we are looking at in the private group. So shout out to you guys, and Patreon, we shall continue here. Let's go. Peace, guys.